Thank you for your patience, everyone. We'll start this Aaron Williams birthday workshop session tonight. Happy birthday, Aaron. Okay. You're not going to review? No, I'm joking. All right. So I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Martin. Here. Cook. Here. Hannett.
Here.
O'Neill. Ruben DeSellis. Here. Scott. Speed.
Here.
Wankle. Here. Watts.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Mary Arthur.
Here.
City Attorney. Here.
Thank you. Item number 1 under the mayor's report is to discuss the 2020 audit presented by Adam Withy with Zimbal and Isorat, Foot and Flynn. So, Mr. Withy, you have the floor, sir.
So many new faces, I was starting to wonder if I was in the right place or not. Okay. Normally I flip through this book as I'm talking to everybody. This year I made notes. I'm going to try to make it short and sweet, easy. Feel free to follow along because my notes do include page numbers. But the big thick book is the main audit. Right after the index is the auditor's report, which is the whole purpose of the audit, to state that the financial statements are materially correct as they're presented in front of you, that we're not aware of any inconsistencies or errors in the numbers. In terms of digging into the actual figures, one of the things we always like to talk about is the general fund and how much cash reserve is in the fund. There's a number of different ways to look at that number and how to calculate it, but my best take on it is that we're looking at probably somewhere in about the 9 to 9.5 months worth of expenditures range. As a firm, we normally say somewhere between 6 to 9 months is a good spot to be. In my discussions with City Clerk Bradshaw and Mayor Ezzard and Treasurer Small-Janik, there is some justification for some higher numbers that was come up with. This year was a high year for health insurance claims that the city had to pay. And the city is self-insured from that aspect. So as the claims go up, the city's liability goes up with the offset of some stop-loss liability. If somebody has an enormous claim, there's another insurance that kicks in. But over the last 2 years, that health insurance fund has paid out about $1 million in claims, which is awfully high compared to historical. So this year, the general fund had to kick in about $1 million to prop that fund up and also essentially more or less kind of subsidize it, because if that money doesn't come from the general fund, it has to come from the employees, which means city employees' paychecks go down because the amount that they're paying for their own health insurance has to go up. So with that trend the last couple of years, it's becoming more and more apparent that it's possible that fund may need some more kicking in over the next year or two. Just the demographic of the population of the workforce here, is usually the reason for that. Anybody can have a drastic injury or sickness at any time. So something to think about. The other large expenditure that is coming up, and part of it's been paid already, part of it may come up again at the end of 21, early 22, somewhere in there, but the payments for the I3 broadband that everybody sees running around town installing the new internet, that's another large, I think all in all it's $2.5 million, somewhere in that ballpark. So cash is at the higher end of that reserve, but I think for good cause after some good discussion with the city board. All right, if you look at page 6 of the audit report, if you're following along, total cash across all funds is up about $1.3 million. Most of that, though, is in the motor fuel tax fund because there are some projects that haven't been paid out yet. There was a grant that came in during the year that had not been paid out yet in terms of the expenditure of $427,000. So Motor fuel tax alone accounts for about 850,000 of that 1.3 million. So money that is completely reserved for specific purposes. Another thing to note on the balance sheet, the government, the city basically has no debt to speak of other than water, sewer, utility debt, which is completely common. But just something to note, the solid position of the city with not having to go out, borrow money, sell bonds, that kind of thing. Governmental income statement on page 8. Total revenue across all funds is up about $744,000, but it's a little bit of a misnomer. There was about $802,000 of COVID relief money that came in it came from the state, but it's federal government money. So that is accounting for a large portion of that revenue increase. Total general fund expenses are up of almost $700,000, but for the same reason that grant money came in, it has to be paid out. It's a reimbursement grant, so if you don't spend it, you don't get it. So it's a one-to-one correlation. Total expenditures across all funds, and when I say they're up or down, I'm referring to last year. Compared to last year, expenditures are down 1.6 million. But most of that was an oddity from last year with the purchase of a couple of new fire engines for, I think, about 1.3 million. So again, the common theme is that there's big swings, but for very identifiable reasons. Let's see. Page 11 is water, sewer, golf income statement. Revenue in water and sewer is down pretty substantially this year, almost $800,000 compared to last year. But again, some identifiable reasons. There was an outside customer, another municipal organization that had to buy some water from us last year because they had some issues with their own water plant, and that accounted to about $350,000 or $320,000, I think. Fewer late fees this year, less assessment of those because of COVID and the city's response. Of course, businesses were shut down for a time. Restaurants weren't serving as much water or making as much food. I have a feeling Nestle was probably running at a little bit lower capacity, possibly Pactive, those kind of COVID-related issues. Believe it or not, golf revenue is actually up. Apparently you could go outside and play golf during COVID. We already talked about the internal service fund. Another big discussion with the audit is usually revolved around the pensions. Pages 14 and 15, you can see that total pension assets, I believe, are about 41 million, which is up about 3.5 million from last year. Good chunk of that. Net investment income is actually up in the pension, or it's actually about $4.2 million this year, which is down slightly from 2019, but between 2019 and 2020, there was about $10 million of net investment income in those two pension funds. So that's not contributions from employees or the employer. That is just the way the invested assets have performed within the market. So if you compare that to, I think, 2018, there was actually a loss of less than $1 million, but you know, that's a big swing and just shows you how well the market has performed, at least in the sector that these are invested in. Now to kind of caveat that, if you jump all the way to page 51, it does show that from an actuarial standpoint, which is essentially a science of estimating how much these pensions are going to cost over, you know, the lifetime of the pension and the lifetime of the individuals drawing the pension. Page 51 shows that there is, I believe it's about a $20 million, hold on and I'll tell you, 51. The net pension liability for police is about 21 million, almost 22. Fire is almost 20. So what that's saying is the estimated liability over the lifetime of this pension is $20 million more than the assets. which is, believe it or not, on par with most Illinois pensions, I think, as we all know. So both of those particular pensions are funded at about 50%. I know I've talked in the past, the property tax levy that's going into each of these pensions for the city's funding share is over and above that required amount by the Department of Insurance calculation to try to kind of eat into this underfunded liability. But, you know, we're talking rather large numbers here. So, of course, everything helps, but you're not going to make a huge dent one year after another. But it's, you know, it's like saving for anything. You've got to be steady and keep doing as much as you can. Page 68, kind of a lot of things I've already discussed for the most part, but, you know, we were really expecting to see the quote-unquote soft revenues, sales tax, income tax, those kind of things that are based on consumption at the economic level. We were expecting to see those drop quite a bit during 2020, at least towards the later parts of 2020, as you know, the economic slowdown or shutdown in certain parts of the COVID economic environment. But that was not the issue. They actually all performed slightly better than 2019. I wish I had a great answer for that. Maybe it's all the online shopping. You know, just a redistribution of people's money, I suppose. Maybe everybody went out and bought lumber. That was a really good way to earn a bunch of tax money, right? Video gaming, we all know the answer to that. It was down about 120 grand from last year, but that's because for, you know, a good part of the year you could not go sit down at the machine. A lot of the local type money though, licenses and permits, revenue from services, fines, those kind of things, they were all down slightly in the general fund. You know, restaurants weren't buying liquor licenses. You know, there's a lot of things that the city kind of delayed or did away with for the 2020 year because of the response to COVID. And, you know, as I discussed this morning with Skip and Andy and Ron, you know, they weren't huge dollars, but the city, you know, did what they could to limit the pain in places that it showed up. So it does show up here in the financials too. You know, it's $120,000 or $150,000, I think, between license and permits and some other fees. So it does make a difference. The federal grant money that's in the general fund, I already told you about 800,000 was cures money from the state for the COVID response. Most of that was spent on you know, actual response activities. I think the biggest expenditure between the two probably was the reallocation of some payroll for individuals that were more involved with that response. Another large expenditure was, I believe there was a trailer that was purchased for testing sites and things like that. So the money did go to good use. There was also another federal grant though this year for about $187,000 for, I always want to say scuba, but that doesn't really work because you're not underwater. It's breathing apparatus for the fire department. So again, some good money to find out there that's available. Very last thing I'm going to talk about, the last page, is the property taxes, which I know we always look at this too, but the thing to note here, general fund, I think it's almost exactly identical for the last 3 years in a row, static at $4.082 million for the levy. So library's been static for a number of years. So really the only difference in the property tax levy has been these pensions that we've already discussed, and the fact that that contribution has been used to try to chip away at this underfunding. I know I gave you some other booklets and information as well. The smaller booklet that you've got is the federal single audit, which is required because of the fact the city spent more than $750,000 in federal money because of that CURES grant. Within that book are the internal control letters that basically state that we did not find any findings to discuss, no major flaws in the internal control structure of the city, no compliance findings, because that federal single audit is aimed at making sure that the compliance that goes along with having that money from the federal government is followed, and the money's going where it should, spent on what it should be spent on. So, happy to report no findings there as well. So, I will stop talking. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to attempt to answer them. And, of course, anybody can always get a hold of me after you get a chance to read through that book if you so choose. As my predecessor, John Ice, would say, you should just walk in, say that, and walk out. Yeah, absolutely. No, the city's doing well. They've got, you know, like I said, the high end of those cash reserves, but the high end on the understanding that there could be some storms that have to be weathered, and to stay in the situation we're in, where we don't need to issue bonds, we don't have to go out and, you know, take out loans for the equipment we need. I think that's something to keep in mind, that money is there for rainy day purposes, for sure. Okay.
Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you.
And like Adam said, if you have any questions, just please give Adam a call, and he'll answer them, or you can go through, send him an email, or however you want to do it. But thank you very much, Adam. Next up on the agenda is item number 2 is to discuss the lease for the former Pony Colt Park. And if just a little background on this, Mr. Fletcher has been working with Dan Murray, who's from Jacksonville. His wife Megan's with him tonight. Dan is very passionate about remote control car racing. His father, Tom, has fixed my RC car numerous times because I hit the fire hydrant right across the street from me all the time, and those don't give. So Dan's, you know, traveling a lot of different places, not just in the state of Illinois, I think outside the state, for remote control cars. It's really becoming a big deal. This track will be a battery operated remote control car track. Like Dan said, the only noise this really produces is in between the races. They might turn on a leaf blower to blow the crumbs off the track. So it's not a gas powered cars, which they do make remote control gas powered, but those are more for off-road and bigger courses. This one's, you know, it's something, the Pony Colt Park, we don't have a Pony Colt anymore. That's been absorbed. There were some plans on the field years ago that Mac Murray was involved in, and obviously we know what happened with Mac Murray. It became nobody used the park anymore, so Dan came to me and said, hey, do you have any city property maybe we could utilize? And I think Adam was in the room and came up with it, I believe. Yeah.
It's just a kind of a revitalization of an empty green space right now. So, you know, it's not being used as anything, so let's turn it into something nice. And I think Dan, I mean, he's very passionate about it. I think it'll be a good thing, and heck, if it draws some people from out of town, and that's always a plus. So, but it's out there, kind of away from the residency. You know, it's out there away from town a little bit. So it's about the perfect location for something like that. So, in my opinion, let's utilize some of that green space and turn it into something useful.
And it happens to have a nice, you know, before, a couple of years back, we renovated and did some things out that facility as far as some bathroom remodel and things, so that he will be able to utilize our facilities that are out there. And, you know, it's a growing sport. If you do some research or Google, you'll see some nice tracks, and you always see the cars that are, a lot of cars, a lot of people travel for this. And Dan is very passionate about this. He's probably getting tired, and Megan's probably getting tired of him driving, so he can focus his energy on building the track. It's him doing that. It's volunteer. He's putting forth. We might help him with some dirt and things like that and small items. But Dan, do you have anything to add? Does that kind of cover it?
You did great. You did good.
He's-
I just messed
he-
it up from here.
He's excited.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Whenever.
It's a dirt track. Oh, you can, Dan, you want to explain how big it will be in the,
In the just, it's basically, okay, Jacksonville Speedway is 100%, let's say. This track will probably be 15% of what that is. So it's gonna be relatively small. The driver's stand that I have to build for the guys will be 16 feet long, but the track itself, like the straightaways on both ends, will probably be around, I don't know, 20, 25 feet with banking in the corners. So it'll look really nice, and I've been hearing for years what guys really want. So I go to all these tracks all over, and we race on what you call as loose dirt. Well, loose dirt goes away if you don't water it. And none of these tracks have banking. Everybody wants to run banking. These are all guys who can't afford to do the real thing anymore, so they're just getting a little bit of what they had when they were racing. So all these guys that I race with, I think, besides my father who occasionally races in town or relatively close, there might be a handful of people. But the guys who will travel from 45 minutes to 6 hours will be incredible. It'll be like, if I host a race, these guys just want a name and a trophy.
I have a photo of a neighboring track I can show you guys if you want to see it.
it's really interesting. I mean, I think Dan will do a great job. I know he will. So I think, like Adam said, it's just, we're basically just repurposing an area that we weren't using. And it'll potentially attract folks to Jacksonville and might be a destination. And currently, Dan built a track in his backyard. So that's how passionate he is about it. And we have not had any complaints from neighbors about his track in his backyard, but he wants to get
Out of my backyard.
out of his backyard, so
I'd like
Emmett
my
can
backyard
play.
back, please.
Dogs will too.
So that's kind of where we're at. We started, Dan and I, been working with Dan, as we started just to get our feet wet with a 2-year lease, and we can re-up. You know, we don't anticipate ending that in 2 years. We just keep rolling it over, and this is a pretty good thing for Jacksonville, I believe.
It's a good thing for the green space. I mean, it's a
Right.
good thing for the parks. It'd be less knowing for us, us taking care of stuff if we don't have to. So, but it will be utilizing some green space that we don't utilize right now.
A lot of these guys bring their families, so they'll like probably use the pool and other like things that we have around town too, so it'd be good for other companies in town as well.
To be honest, you get to a lot of these places, and they're places like Delavan, Illinois, you probably never heard of. Out in the middle of nowhere, so you got nowhere to go for food or anything like that. Well, where we'll be if we get this is perfect, because everybody can just leave. Their families don't have to spend 12 hours out there. They can go and do other stuff. And heck, we got guys who like to fish. There's one track in Farmer City, Illinois, that's just outside of a pond, basically. And the guy comes early and fishes, and then sets up his stuff, so when he can go back, he goes back and races, so he spends the day doing that. So I think it'll just bring a lot of people into the town.
Excellent. Any comments from the council? Well, good work, Adam. Good work, Dan and Megan, and that'll be on the agenda for a resolution for the lease. So you're more than welcome to stick around, Dan and Megan, but you don't have to. But we appreciate
Thank you, guys.
your support on this.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, city attorney's report.
Thank you. One item tonight, discuss a potential amendment to the liquor ordinance. For some of you who've been on the council for quite a few years, you recall when we first went into the gaming industry, we went through various stages as far as the types of licenses and so forth that we'd approve. We have 2 gaming parlors currently in existence. We capped the limit to those 2, grandfathered those in, but said there would be no more gaming parlor licenses issued. And Don, or some of you that were on the council may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but the sentiment, or I think the thinking at that time, was that rather than have standalone gaming parlors, we preferred for the restaurants or taverns, or especially service clubs that were seeking gaming as a necessary portion of their revenues, to have those gaming licenses. So since that all took place, which was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, we've been limited to 2 standalone gaming parlors in town. From time to time, we've had requests for additional gaming parlors or an ordinance amendment. It's always been explained it would be necessary to amend the ordinance if they wanted to go through that procedure. No one has up till this point. We currently have an application for a liquor license for another gaming parlor, and then on the back of that, another call came in last week for a gaming parlor. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. We have on the agenda, or we'll plan on having on the agenda at the next meeting, the ordinance amendment, so you can either vote it up or down, and plenty of time for discussion at that point. And I think there may be somebody here from the applicant that, under public comment, I think was going to make some comments about what they had in mind. But just wanted to bring that to your attention and the history of it and so forth, and that'll be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Any other questions for Dan on that? Okay, committee reports this evening, Parks and Lakes. Alderman Large Old Nettle isn't here, so I'll just, Adam, I know she was gonna kick it to you, so.
It's already, the project's already been approved, we're just trying to send it out for bids for the pavilion road, the pavilion roof at Nichols Park. If anybody has any questions or anything, we'd like to send that out for bid, with the bid opening, I believe, July 20th, so we can get started after that. But if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to help, try to answer them for you.
Thanks, Adam. He is here tonight, Utility Alderman Wonkel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 2 items tonight. Number 1, discuss utility department projects. And Jamie with Benton is here to talk about those items.
Can you get set? I'm gonna just, because I know these individuals are from out of town, so can we just do public comment right now? I don't want you to have to sit and wait if you don't want to, because this will take a while, this presentation. So at this time, I'd ask for public comment.
Sure.
Yeah, you have the floor. Come on right up to the mic.
All right.
There, sir.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
Yep.
I typically, when I visit a city, I might have a full presentation or whatnot, but I'll make it real brief and just make a couple comments. We are interested in developing the location that is up on Morton Road, which is what I call the Dunkin' Donuts Plaza. And it's been vacant for some time. It's a very nice building. It's kind of an eyesore being empty, but we bring a lot of capital to town. We do a very nice build out. And what the developer and I have came up with is we're going to demise half the space, and there is a very large national brand that is also interested in coming to Jacksonville that would like to take the other half of that building if we could put a deal together and make it all work out. So that's part of it. We are a little bit of a hybrid model, and I know you mentioned gaming parlor, and that's kind of where our licensing falls under. But we're more of I can submit an email to the city, but we basically are what I call a Starbucks of gaming. We build our locations out with stone bars, very high end. We typically have, it's more of a sports bar with TVs, all the local games on, and we have a light menu. The national vendor that is coming in beside us would rather us not have a full menu of food there, but light menu. And that's typically what we do in our establishments. We currently have 18 locations in the state of Illinois with 5 others under construction. And we, under our forecasts, which are pretty accurate, we anticipate bringing about an additional $35,000 with our model to your current gaming revenue for an annualized income. So that would be a significant amount to the city of Jacksonville. And with you only having 2 parlors, one of the reasons why we would be interested is that's a very low number. Used to, well, like you mentioned, back in the day, it made sense. Now that's a very low number. Most of your parlors, even the ones I went in to visit today, are full. And there's people that tend to wait to even get to play, so it's not like there's an overabundance of gaming. I think we would add to the current revenue and not take from any of the other local restaurants or businesses. Most towns that we go into, that is not the situation, because we are not in competition with the restaurants or not automatically the parlors as well. So I just wanted to make that clear in our model. We have submitted a full application to the city, and our gaming fees and all that checks to the city are already as well. So with the national brand, that's nice, and then we are very supportive to the local charities and organizations and towns that we're in as well. So I can provide you with pictures of our facilities, all that. If anybody's interested, just let us know. But I think we would be a very nice addition to the hospitality part of the city of Jacksonville, and we're very excited about coming here. So thanks for letting me speak for just a second. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Like Dan said, that'll be on the agenda the next council meeting. Okay, thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
would I be required to speak at that meeting, or is it just you guys a vote?
You can
Okay.
present.
You can if you'd like.
Is that a recommendation, or now that you know what?
It's really up to you.
Okay. Thank you.
What you want to do at that point. You can make a presentation, and you'll have pictures and so forth. The council has heard it once, but it's up to you whether you want to.
Okay, thank you.
Or you can,
I can email it to the.
yeah, you can email it
We
and I
have a
can
presentation
distribute
I
it.
can send.
Yeah,
It's very brief.
however you want.
Sure.
Okay, sorry about that. We have the gentleman from Benton and Associates. So, Mr. Hedden, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Adam.
Okay, tonight we have a couple items to go over in utility. I want to give you an update on one of them, and then we actually have a council action item on the other one. So this is a continuation from the workshop we did last October. It was a little lengthy last time, I understand. So I reduced that a little bit, but we do have 4 new council members. So we want to make sure for this project, the wastewater treatment plant, and some of the things that are on the horizon for the next 15 years, we make sure we go through those, let everybody have a chance to ask any questions you might have, and kind of lay that path here going forward. So the first item that we're going to talk about is the Anna Street Ameren site utility relocation. Some of you may have seen a lot of activity going on there to the west of Taco Gringo, wondering what's going on. I know there's been some news reports over the last few months, but as it relates to the city and the utilities, there's city-owned property along the town brook, along the north side, really, and the south side. But where the site is, most of the utilities do cross some of the remediation area, but also then bordering it on both sides. This site, just a quick recap here, it was a former manufactured gas plant, late 1800s, early 1930s, and then natural gas storage, 1960s. So Ameren is remediating the site for benzene. They're remediating that down to about 55 feet, so it's fairly deep. So if you go there by the site, eventually they get down about 55 feet to get that taken care of. They remediate the soil with some cement additives. So as our utilities go through that site, now we have a bit of a concern in that what's going to be the future of that. How can Rick and his crews maintain those utilities going forward? And they kind of rolled in here earlier this year, but they're trying to get done at the end of 2021. So they're on a pretty tight schedule. So our utilities right now, the existing sewer is in green. If you can see the green there, the green line along Town Brook is an existing 33-inch sewer. The ones running north and south, north being to the top of the screen, 24-inch on the left and on the right. So the yellow area is a remediation zone. And those are the areas where we have the direct conflict. If we're looking from Town Brook to the north, this is a cross-section of that site. In terms of depth, again, it's about 55 feet deep, but you can see the areas of red are about the highest levels of benzene. And if you see the green lines going across about halfway across there, that's the sanitary sewer running along the site there. So we're really above the plume, but the soils all the way up are being remediated and would be a conflict with the sewer. So we've been trying over the last few months to develop a relocation plan or some sort of plan that takes care of the utilities in this area that is of a favorable position to the city. So the mayor's office, Alderman Wankel, Rick Herron and his guys been trying to work with Ameren to figure out the best way to get these things either out of the way or relocated or replaced. It actually helps Ameren to get these utilities staged out of the way for a while, so it's a benefit to them. But also getting new utilities benefit to the city. So the red lines there, along Town Brook, that's a new 42-inch sewer that is being proposed. On the east side, the right-hand side of the Ameren site would be a new 36-inch sewer. And along Anna Street, west to east, there would be a new 24-inch sewer. And they're going to stage this by adding pumping at the southwest corner of the screen here, the two existing manholes. So you might see some pumps down there over the next few months. They're going to actually shut down the sewer and bypass pump flows to the southwest corner of the Taco Gringo parking lot back to our existing manhole there. So while that's going on, rolling construction would be replacing the sewer during that time. Also, in the upper right-hand corner, the water main, there's a 6-inch water main there that we feel might be affected as well. So we talked to Ameren about that. So that would be the replacement section along Anna Street and then South Sandy. So at this point, cost $670,000 for the sewer construction, $82,000 for the water main, and about $128,000 for engineering. And legal, we've been trying to develop a license agreement with Ameren. Again, the mayor's office, Alderman Wankel and others have been working on that. I think we're down to where the terms are favorable for the city. And we're also to the point where these utilities can be relocated, and Ameren has agreed, at least in form, per the agreement, to do those at no cost. So that's about an $881,000 utility benefit getting relocated there. So based on the plan now, I think we're in pretty good shape with that. We'd recommend that you move forward if that agreement and those terms can be met. And I think we're really close. As of last Friday, we had the last couple terms being worked on. So I think we're getting in pretty good shape. So there's no council action necessarily tonight or going forward even. There's no cost being approved. But we wanted to make sure you had that update. And if you did have some concerns, that we answer those questions for you. Any questions on that project? Okay. The next item, a little bit larger, the wastewater treatment plant. Again, a continuation from last October. There's some changes that need to be going on at the wastewater plant. So in October, we took a look at the history, took a little site tour, reviewed the permitting requirements, what we've been working on in the facility plan, and then how we're going to implement the plan going forward, and then, of course, the costs and funding and the best way to go about that. Historically, the city's been treating wastewater since the early 1900s. If you look in 1971, the existing treatment plant construction was taken on, and then really it kind of coincides with EPA being invented about the same time as well. You'll start to see a pattern of regulatory changes about every 10 to 15 to 20 years. From there, late 80s, early 90s, 2000s, and then now we're at 2020 with our new permit and new requirements. In terms of what the wastewater system does for us, we treat about 5 to 8 million gallons a day on average, but the system or the treatment plant actually can take up to about 60 million gallons a day in terms of storm flows. So what we had this weekend definitely qualifies as storm flows. That was a lot of rain. But mostly we're down in that 5 to 7 range for the most part. But we are a combined sewer system, so there's sanitary sewer from the homes, but also some stormwater as well. So we see those peak flows. But it's all collected in about 90,000 feet of pipes throughout the city. We treat about 1.9 billion gallons of wastewater a year and remove about 6.5 million pounds of contaminants from the water before it's discharged into Movistar. Real quick review of the process. This is a plan view of the wastewater treatment plant. All the wastewater comes in to the first part there, the headworks. Find some core screening happens there, kind of get the big solids out. Then it heads to primary treatment, a little bit of first settling at this point. More solids are dropped out of the process at this point. Secondary treatment starts more of the biological process where aeration is added. You can see in this picture there's kind of bubbles in there. That's where we harness the power of the bugs to do their thing, and then the real treatment starts happening. Then final clarification, and clarification is true. This is where we try to clarify the water before it's discharged, so it's a lot more settling at that point. Sometimes we have to disinfect the wastewater before it goes to the creek, and that's the disinfection process with chlorine. Sometimes, depending on the water level in Movistar, we also have to pump the wastewater into the creek. So there's an effluent pumping station at the southwest part of the plant. All this process, taking out the solids, requires us to do something with it. So sludge management is probably one of the biggest labor-intensive, cost-intensive parts of the process. Right now, the sludge is in a liquid form and then land applied, much like we land apply lime sludge from the water treatment plant. A little more difficult in this case to manage, and we're a little bit undersized on our sludge volume storage as well. The eighth part there, the large clarifier on the bottom, that was, I'm assuming, utilized this weekend, Rick, at the plant. That really sits empty a lot of times, depending on the stormwater flows. When there is large flows, it goes into the large CSO treatment basin. Okay, the way you can discharge water from the treatment plant into the waters of the state is through your NPDES permit, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. That permit is renewed every 5 years. This is EPA's opportunity to review the regulations and maybe enact new regulations. Usually between that time, nothing happens as far as changes, but then every 5 years, this is where it takes place. And in this case, the new permit was issued in 2020 with fairly normal requirements, except for a few big ones, one being phosphorus. Phosphorus is a new limit that you have, and there's a timeline on how to comply with that. So why do we even care about phosphorus? Well, phosphorus and other nutrients, nitrogen, others, you can see they're all collected in the Midwest and they all end up in the Gulf. And that creates a hypoxia zone, which we just know not enough oxygen to support life. So everybody in the Midwest gets to try to help out that cause and try to reduce their nutrient load into the waterways. And two, the city has a point discharge, so you have one place where it's discharged. There's other nutrients that get into the streams, agriculture, other types of things. But in terms of a permitted point discharge, you're here, and they're going to apply those rules to you if they can. It's really all part of an overall phosphorus reduction strategy. In the late 90s, you can see kind of where the phosphorus loads were in million pounds per year. By 2018, it had dropped about 25%. We're kind of getting the zone where they're wanting to be more like 50% reduction from that point. And really, this isn't just a phosphorus limit for Jacksonville. This has been issued to the larger facilities, and now it's kind of trickled down to our size, our population, and our flows. In the bottom right-hand corner, you see some of our neighbors. Springfield's in there. They've been working on this, and for example, they've reduced their load by over half. So how do we do in terms of phosphorus? Why do we even have to mess with this? We're about 1.8 milligrams per liter now. And the new limit is less than 1, going to have to be about 0.5 milligrams per liter by about 2030. Doesn't seem like much, just 1 milligram per liter. But in terms of phosphorus treatment, it ends up being a lot. And the requirement to do that and the equipment that we have in place just isn't quite there. We think it's modifiable though. And then in the future, we may actually have to go down to 0.1, which is getting pretty high in treatment at this point. So the good news is, at least if we have a new requirement, they've given us time to take care of it, which is strange, but we'll take it. So that's how we have to sort of work with the plan. So the first step, this has been done over the last year and a half or two, is the facility plan. We looked at these different items related to this requirement and how we're going to take care of it. We've submitted that facility plan 4 or 5 months ago, and EPA has reviewed that. Cameron, I think it's on its way back, I think, right? So. Yeah, so permitting's okay with the plan, which means we can kind of be assured that moving forward with design is we're in good shape there. So from the facility plan, really the reason why we do it is to analyze what needs to be done and why, and then justify that to the funding agencies, kind of get a business plan for what needs to happen. We have the phosphorus limit, we have some other limits that we have to meet, but really through that process, evaluating the plant, a lot of the items at the plant have exceeded their useful life. They're not completely dead yet, but there's a lot of them that are getting hard to replace. Everybody kind of goes through that sometimes. We're also getting to the point where things were built so many years ago, confined space entry requirements, electrical code, different codes are becoming difficult to meet with the current facilities that we have. Sludge management, mentioned that a little bit earlier. Really right now, we're not able to meet the sludge management requirements for EPA with our 2 sludge storage tanks, having to recycle some of that sludge, which really isn't what they want to see. Also, that's land applied, and so no more storage than we have. We really have to hit the timing right, either spring or fall, when that's land applied based on crops. So going forward, we want to try to look at a sludge management plan that gives us the opportunity to land apply on a lot larger window and really use our labor forces a lot better. This is probably one of the largest wastewater plants I know that doesn't have a plant-wide SCADA system or a control system. Just getting into today's technology, it's kind of like driving your car without a speedometer. You're expected to follow the speed limit. Police pulls you over, you have to follow the speed limit. But if you don't have anything telling you how fast you're going, you really don't know. You're kind of guessing. And that's kind of what the controls are. Rick's folks in Leland, they're out there trying to make sure they meet these requirements, but if they don't have the online monitoring, they're always late trying to figure it out. And then electrical, it's just getting age at this point, and it's getting difficult and expensive to replace. So some of the assets have some age on them, but the regulatory changes, those are probably the biggest impact and the one that's driving the need as much as anything in terms of large-scale work that needs to be done. We'd like to say that the existing system can meet that phosphorus level, but the volume in the biological areas just isn't quite there. So we're really not able to do it right now. Plus the headworks and all the support processes don't meet the ability to meet that phosphorus level either. So the regulatory changes are really the key driver. So areas that we're going to have to look at in order to meet that compliance deadline and date is the headworks, the primary treatment, final clarification, and sludge management. The disinfection, effluent pumping, and CSO treatment, some of those areas have had some improvements over the last 10 years, and they're in pretty good shape right now. So we really don't need to do much to those other than make sure that they work in concert with the rest of the improvements that are going to happen. So what are the options? Really, the first step is it'd be nice to modify existing operations. Can we change a process with what we have, modify how we're doing it to meet those needs at the least cost possible? Analyze that. We're just not able to do it with the phosphorus limit. Second is rehabilitate what we have. We have a good treatment plant. Can we just rehab it in place? You have the property, you have the site, you have some space at the treatment plant. So those are all things you have going for you. Or do you say, well, let's just build a new treatment plant? And I think when looking at these 3 modes of operation to tackle the problem here, building a new treatment plant, as much as it's expensive to be the way we're going to have to take care of it now, it's just not really necessary with the fact that you have a facility that, again, has space, you have a site, you have a lot of structural elements that are worth rehabbing and building upon. So really we want to go down that path of rehabilitate at this point and see how that treats us. The good news about having a timeline like they're talking about, 10 to 15 years, and already having your site is the ability to do phased implementation, both on construction and then funding. So we've kind of broken it out into 4 or 5 phases. Phase 1 will be the headworks, the beginning of the plant, and that's the action item that's on the agenda tonight for the design of that. Phase 2 is SCADA controls, then electrical. Phase 3 is the sludge system, and phase 4 and now 5, depending on where we're at when we actually get to that point, is how we tackle the phosphorus. But all the 3 things before it speak to how we're going to be able to do the phosphorus part when we get there and need to be done. All right, the schedule that we talked about in October ended in 2030. Since we've been here, there's been some changes in personnel at EPA, and they're viewing some of the federal requirements a little bit different. So we're actually able to expand that, should you want to 2035. Now, we're talking 15 years in the future. It gives us time. We also don't know exactly how things are going to be changing by then in terms of costs and technology and stuff. So this does give us a little bit more ability to chop these up into phases and attack the best way that's going to treat the city. So if we start off in phase 1, the headworks improvements, really starting off in 2 or 3 phases at once, because even though we're designing the phase 1 headworks now, and we'll probably be looking for construction here in the next year or 2 on that, got to make sure phase 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 are going to work in concert with phase 1. So in the agreement tonight on the agenda, phase 1 is designed complete through bidding, and then phase 2, 3, and 4 are just to get to the conceptual level of 20% and then stop. Because in phase 3, sludge management, odds are high that we're going to have some pilot study work that we need to do. That equipment there, a lot of times you may bring in different technologies or manufacturers to the site and test that over maybe a 2 to 3, 4, 5 month period. So we're going to kind of have 4 trains leaving the station at the same time. Some are going to outpace the others, but they're all in support of each other. In terms of funding, this also gives us the ability to chop up the phases on funding and maximize potential grant opportunities. And really that's as important as about anything, is being able to maximize the amount of grant, or as EPA calls it, principal forgiveness, to keep the rates as low as possible. Phase 1 funding, about 3rd quarter of 2022, then you can just kind of see the rest of them falling in place, 2024, 25. I think after that it gets a little more hazy. We got a plan. We think we're going to stay on track, but we're going to be ready to adjust as needed as well. Maybe a funding source changes, maybe it improves, maybe we have to do something different. The other thing too, as more plants have a phosphorus limit, the technology is going to keep improving as well. So as those changes happen, we're going to be able to maximize that when it's time for us to actually do that work. Costs. These are planning level costs right now. We do have 20% contingency included in here. And for things like if we've tried to buy a sheet of plywood lately, it's definitely not the cheapest thing in the world. But there are market variations that are hopefully accounted for in here. But at planning level, 20% contingency would be a good level to be at. So phase 1 total is a little under $12 million. Phase 2, a little over $2 million. 3 at 12.6. Phase 4, 6.3, and phase 5, 3.8. And these are in today's dollars. We've not escalated that for 15 years dollars at this point. All with the goal of being done by 2035 and meeting that phosphorus limit. Mentioned some operation and maintenance costs earlier. Phase 1 and 2 aren't going to have a lot of increase in O&M costs. Some of the work that they're doing now will probably get transferred to new things. There's going to be new equipment. Because it's new will mean we're not going to be replacing it as much, but keep in mind we're treating it to a higher level. So when you do that, there's additional treatment happening. So we think phase 1 and phase 2 are going to be fairly neutral on O&M costs. Phase 3, the sludge system, that's where the additional O&M definitely comes in. And in this case, the plan is to attack the sludge, potentially having another employee or 2 and managing the sludge in-house. You could manage the sludge with an outside contractor, but staying in-house and having your own employees to do that, it's about a $400,000 or $500,000 reduction in that. And then just a little bit of extra chemical O&M on the phosphorus plan in the last phase. Funding, I'm going to talk about EPA SRF low interest loan at this point anyways, that there are some other agencies, and that doesn't mean this is the only one you have to. Right now, it's probably the most favorable in terms of governmental funding sources, but there may be other delivery options as we go down the road in the schedule that we don't know about today. One thing's for sure, over the last year, and the city has benefited, being project ready has been the name of the game. Having projects ready to bid, ready to go is definitely how you get in the good seat for dollars. EPA loan program, been active for a while. This year's terms are pretty favorable for the city. Interest rates a little bit over 1%. Historically, those have been 2.5%, somewhere around there. And a key element of the wastewater funding compared to the water that we've used for the water plant is the principal forgiveness calculation. There's limits on the water side for principal forgiveness. With the wastewater side, it's 15 to 30%. Also limited, I think, to 5 million this year, isn't it, Cameron? Yeah, 5 million. But that has changed depending on what some of the needs are. So right now, based on your median household income, you qualify for an interest rate a little over 1%, and probably somewhere between that 15 and 30% principal forgiveness range. Loans also are typically a 20-year term. They do have options to go for 30. I think at this point, all of the EPA loans that the city's had have all been 20-year terms. And then it works out pretty good as there's other items needing to be done. There's usually some old EPA loans that are getting paid off, so that debt service switches out. It's kind of a funding approach in terms of the impact to the water, or to the system here. There's debt service calculations. You have the total by phase in terms of total project cost, and then estimated principal forgiveness on the second line. So if the terms hold the way they are now, you could get around $9 or $10 million in principal forgiveness over that time. Now, what happens in 8 or 10 years of the program, that's a little bit more of a question. But as far as the impact to the sewer fund, either at the 20-year debt service line or the 30-year, phase one's around between $300,000 and $450,000, and then you can see kind of the rest of them there about the same. So in summary, we do have some investment that's required at the wastewater plant. It's really driven by regulations as much as anything, somewhat asset shape as well. But the good news is we can attack it in phases and kind of whittle away at it. So we've already done phase one on the facility plan, step one there, and then phase two is where we're at tonight, and that's the action item on the council agenda. So summary of amendment number one for the engineering services agreement. We had a services agreement that was enacted in 2018. So this would be the first amendment to that agreement, and it's kind of broken up into 4 or 5 pieces. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at it yet or not, but there's a facility plan update with some, the reason for that is the requirements that were added from the permit discharge optimization plan that we already have done, just needing to submit. Nutrient assessment reduction work plan, unfortunate acronym of NARP in that case, and then finish up the environmental clearances. Then we kind of move into more of the design side. So existing conditions assessment, survey of the site, subsurface utility engineering, identifying where all the pipes and everything are, and then the geotechnical evaluation of the soils. And this is where kind of the different trains leave the station. Phase 1 through 4 conceptual design. Really, we'll do the process modeling and design for the whole facility. Also do all the hydraulic modeling and design for the whole facility. And then last time in our workshop, we talked about alternative energy plans. There is some site at the treatment plant that might be able to be used for either solar or alternative energy profiles of some if you want to go that route. So we'll have more to talk about that in the future if the council wants to consider it. And then phase 1, really the headworks process, structural, HVAC, electrical design and permitting. That's going to take us all the way to be ready to bid on phase 1. And that'll be done here the next 9 months or so. And then also at the same time, we'll be working on funding with EPA, getting all those funding applications ready to go. So our design and funding are kind of in parallel tracks as well. And if, you know, I kind of asked myself, you know, they're large dollar amounts. We definitely don't take that lightly. EPA has a standard scale of allowable fee schedule. For projects this size, design fees at 7% are their maximum on their eligibility scale. So for the phase one headworks design in this case, we're about 4.5%. So in working with Rick on getting the scope defined and working through everything, I think we're trying to keep the value of it there while still getting the job done and getting the best plans we could possibly can to get the lowest bids. Okay, so the new headworks, this will be the design. A little 3D model here for you, but get this going. So a new influence splitter. There's a building that we have to take down on the northeast corner of the site. Improvements on core screening, influent pumping, fine screening as well, which is going to be required for the phosphorus limit. And then improvements on instrumentation, electrical, and SCADA, of course. The video never likes to play when I want it to. So this is a 3D model of the wastewater treatment plant. The northeast corner is where the new headworks is going to be. Existing building will be removed, and then the new headworks built near where most of the influent pipes come into the plant. Connect onto those pipes, get everything installed. We're able to phase construction and make sure we switch everything over as we're going along there. Keep everything in operation, that's the goal. And then tie back into the primary treatment. And then we're done, off to phase 2. Okay, ran through that pretty quick. I'd like to open the floor to any questions. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm new to this, so bear with me.
Sure.
Why isn't this just a new resolution? Why are we piggybacking off of a 2018 one off the water plant? What's the advantage to that?
As far as the amendment, why is it amendment format? Is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
why are we amending a previous resolution from 2018 that was for 180,000 for the waste, or for the new water treatment plant?
The 2018 agreement was the wastewater treatment plant facility plan.
Well, it says here the new water treatment plant project
Oh,
in
okay.
the amount of 180,000 was number 2018 R076, and now we're at 2021 R071 for the wastewater treatment plant.
I don't know if it was
I mean, why are we
mislabeled
using?
somewhere.
Why didn't
or-
we just start a new?
Yeah, in the 2018 agreement, it has probably 4 or 5 pages of standard language that EPA requires us to have for eligibility. And so we typically set up the agreement from the beginning, and then if there's any additions to it, we just do amendments. At least that's how we've done in the past. And that way, when we submit it to EPA for eligibility, so you can get reimbursed from EPA these expenses when you get your loan, it'll pass and they'll be able to approve those. That's been the format in the past anyways.
Okay, but we're looking at almost $1 million worth of work, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't that have been put out for bid?
On engineering services, it's qualifications-based selection. In this case, since we had the previous relationship and we were working already on the facility plan, you're allowed to go ahead and proceed in this fashion.
Okay, so that's not the reason why we're using the 2018? It's not, okay.
Sorry.
And there's actually laws in place that say this is the method that you would secure the services of engineers, is you have an existing relationship, and of course, we're fully vested in the community's success. So this is the way you would do it on the engineering side of things. When you get to the actual construction, that's when it would be competitively bid and construction bids would be received.
But that would be a separate bill from this 961,000, correct?
Yeah, right. This is just the design phase to get us to the point then where we could advertise for bid, select contractors.
I was just confused on why we're running it off of a water treatment plant.
Is that in the agenda language? Is that maybe? I'm wondering if there might have been a
I mean,
miss.
that's what it says here. It's the new
Yeah.
water treatment plant project in the amount of $180,000. is what this amendment is off of. And that's why my question was, if this is
Why
a
are we
new
just-
project at
yeah.
a different facility, why isn't it a whole different thing? And it says the utility committee signed off on it, but I don't know. Did
And
they
I don't know
meet?
if it was just a mistake in the language, because
could
it
be.
should
I
have said
think-
wastewater plant at
Yeah.
that time.
I guess the first question was whether that previous resolution was for the water treatment plant back in 2018, or was that for the wastewater treatment?
That was for the wastewater.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that should be the correction in that first paragraph.
Okay, so this isn't a new, so we're not piggybacking off the
No,
water
not
plant? Okay,
piggybacking
that's the way
No.
it reads to me. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I see what you're saying.
I'll confirm that with the utility attorney, but we'll approve the
Yeah, the-
resolution, changing that to that first paragraph for the wastewater treatment plant, rather than new water treatment plant project.
Yeah, because I didn't get any information on what 2018 R076 was,
Gotcha, okay.
other than it says it's for the water plant.
And what are you looking off of there?
Just whatever they sent out on the.
Oh, okay, the actual resolution language?
Resolution.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't get to see that.
But I think it's important to point out that the amendment really does refer
Yeah,
to the wastewater system improvements, not the water treatment plant. It's easy to understand how that was confusing.
It says that you're amending the one from 18, which is a water plant.
Right.
So you'd be amending a water plant thing.
Yeah, that's definitely confusing.
right, and the one from 2018 is the wastewater plant amendment, agreement. It's just a mistake in the resolution.
Because I think
Yeah, yeah, it's the 20, gotcha, okay. And I'd be glad to give you a copy of that original agreement if anybody,
No, I just,
okay,
it says water plant and that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, it should be
I
wastewater
agree.
treatment plant.
Any other questions? Be glad to go back through anything. I meant to say too, I talked to Sally Long, about half of this cost is gonna be in fiscal year 2021, and she accounted for that in last year's budget, in the 2021 budget. And then the other half will probably be in 2022. So she started budgeting for that previously anyways, and I would imagine that same portion will be in next year's as well. Any other questions?
Thanks, Jamie. I know that for the older members here, this is kind of a review of what we've already been discussing, kind of heading in that direction, but Jamie, the mayor, we all felt like this is a lot of information, and to get you 4 new members educated on that. It's a lot of information tonight, you probably can't absorb, but if you have any questions, reach out to Jamie, and I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them, or get a hold of Rick or Leland and go for a tour and really learn about it. But it's more about adhering to some EPA regulations coming down the pipeline, and that's kind of where we're headed. But thanks, Jamie, for preparing that tonight. And we have a meeting once a month with Benton and review all this information. If there's anything that pops out, the mayor and I feel like we need to have a utility meeting about, we'll certainly call one.
There's really no, I mean, it's at the coordination.
Normally we don't, because if we did, we would, we'd be meeting every month with recommendations. As you see in our agenda, every week I talk about from 2 to 8 action items. So that's why. Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, good question. And also, I'd like to commend Benton's on, what we talked about earlier with the Ameren project down on, Anna Street. Getting in there for action. Ameren just kinda walked into town and started doing this project, and, they were proactive along with the mayor and myself, and we were able to, get those things taken care of with Benton, poking and prodding at Ameren, so, thank you guys.
Okay. Is there anything else? We already went through public comment. I guess we will adjourn the workshop session. And I'll ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Bartlett,
Here.
Cook,
Here.
Hannett,
Here.
Odenental, Ruben DeSellis. Here. Scott, Speed. Wankel,
Here.
Watts,
Here.
Williams,
Here.
Mayor Izzard.
Here.
City Attorney Beard.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Very good. Is there a reading of the minutes this evening? Alderman Wankel, seconded by Alderman Cook. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any presentation of petitions
None.
and any communications?
No.
No communications and no claims?
No, sir.
Okay, well. Okay, the first item under the mayor's report is to reappoint of Tim Plogger, Ike Howe, Gary Hickox, Brad Coors, Adam Craddock, Tom Mueller to the Electrical Commission, term to expire June 30th of 20, with terms to expire June 30th of 2021. That makes no sense. Yeah, well, their term's expiring, so they're re-upping, so. Is there a motion to keep these folks on the Electrical Commission? Any? Alderman Cook, second by Alderman Hannett. Discussion? Voice vote. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. The other item is the resolution confirming the mayor's reappointment of Bruce McDaniel to the Public Building Commission of the City of Jacksonville, term to expire July 1st of 2026, and is there a motion for Mr. McDaniel? Alderman Watts, seconded by Alderman Speed.
Be it resolved by the city council that its advice and consent is hereby given to the reappointment of Bruce McDaniel as a commissioner of the Public Building Commission of the City of Jacksonville.
Discussion? I would ask the clerk to please call roll. Or voice.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Go ahead, Skip.
Cook,
Yes.
Hannett,
Yes.
Ruben DeSellis.
Yes.
Speed. Yes. Wankel,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
and Williams. Yes. Motion passes.
Any public comment at this time? Yeah, go ahead, Skip.
Alderman Cook, I gave you a expiration of the IT contract. Let's turn that over to the IT Personnel and Finance Committee to review and get a hold of Scott, comma group.
Any other public comment? Okay, consent agenda items tonight. Finance, IT, and Personnel, Alderman Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have one item tonight. It's the City Treasurer's Report for May 31st, 2021, and the Alderman received that via email.
Okay, Parks and Lakes, Alderman Large isn't here. And committee assignments will come out next. Who wants to just take that? Can you read it?
Sure.
Alderman Cook, please.
We have two items tonight. The first one is the resolution authorizing advertisement for bids for the McGee Spalding Pavilion roof replacement.
Thank you.
Second item is a resolution approving lease agreement for the former Pony Coat League.
Very good. And Utility, Alderman Wankel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One item tonight, resolution approving amendment number 1 for the wastewater treatment plant system improvement project, and I so move.
Is there a second on the consent agenda? Alderman Bartlett? Is there any items under the consent agenda you wish to pull for further discussion this time? Seeing none, I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Williams?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Wankel?
Yes.
Speed?
Yes.
Ruben DeSellis?
Yes.
Hammett?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Bartlett?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Any old business this evening? I've got an item under old business. I know Alderman DeSellis emailed me, if any of the new aldermen have preference on what committees you'd like to piques your interest, just shoot me a text or email and I'll try to assign you to those committees. I mean, but just because you're on that, if you're not on the committee, everybody can come to the meetings, okay? I don't want you to think that it's just designed and you'll have a say. It's more of a committee of the whole, but I completely understand what Alderman Hannett's saying about utilities. Tricky because we meet monthly as a coordination in the office because we deal with Benton Associates on our water and sewer, and it's we always will have, if Alderman Wankel or myself or suggested like Jamie and Reggie and everybody, Cameron, if there's some topic like tonight, kind of, we all collectively thought, hey, we got a new group, we got to get them in and at least start the process. I know that was hard to understand a lot of that tonight. And Rick, don't pass out the tests because we'll wait on another night for that. But it is hard, and it's going to take some time. I've been mayor for 12 years, and it's hard for me just to kind of grasp what phosphorus and things and how we treat. With that being said, we need to coordinate. I think the evening would be better, probably because folks work, but we need to coordinate a time where the new alderman or the old alderman as well can take a tour of our new water plant and kind of walk through if they want to go out to the sewer plant or something like that and kind of visualize it. Or if you don't want to wait for that meeting, you can always reach out to Rick or myself and we can arrange it when you're comfortable. But there's a couple things that I'd like to point out too. There's some things like, I know that our golf course is needing a lot of attention. The facilities out there, where the superintendent's office is, and the maintenance shed, and the concessions and things. And I know some of you haven't been out there, and some of you have, and those are the type of things I'd also like to show the new council, and some of the old council may have not ever been out to our shooting range, the police training center. That's a hidden gem. We've utilized that, and we've trained a lot of not only our officers but a lot of law enforcement officials throughout our region and state and out of state have come in, and it's top notch. It's kind of out there hidden, but I think it'd be appropriate sometime for, it's a tricky little drive, but just to kind of show you what we've done in the past and what we continue to do. So I'll try to send out an email this week on kind of picking some days, maybe, and working with Rick, and if he can stay around a little bit and kind of walk through the water plant and show you, and I think that'd go a long way with it. It does for me personally, visualizing what we were talking about, and this, you know, as far as the sewer plant, and kind of walking through and you know, showing you like what Jamie was going through. This building needs to go away because that's where the new part's coming. So things like that. So, okay, I'm long-winded. Also, we have a 4th of July celebration on Sunday night. We're glad to bring that back with Central State. They're chomping at the bit to put on a good show for us, so that'll be Sunday night when it gets dark. Look for a good crowd and getting back to some normalcy. Any other old or new business at this time? Yeah. No, we locked in at 11,500, and the village helps with 1,500 of that. And yes.
Just one item for the alderman. I sent out some emails with regard to the IML conference in Chicago. The registrations are now open. I gave you the information for that. If you would like to attend that, please let me know, preferably in the next week to 10 days. The earlier that we make reservations at the hotel, the better. They fill up, well, it hasn't filled up for a while lately, but just in case, we go ahead and my office will make the reservations for everybody, and then when you arrive, you will take care of it, and then I sent you a copy of the voucher form that you bring back to the city, and then you get reimbursed for all of that. It just makes it a little bit easier so you know what you're spending, and then get it back to me. So if you'd like to go, let me know, preferably the next week to 10 days. I'd appreciate it. Okay? And if you have any questions with regard, call me. I've been there several times, and it is a worthwhile visit. There's an awful lot of information, And if you can, if you think this was some information, wait till you get up there. So.
And it's designed to network with other municipalities. You know, you'll see a lot of familiar faces that are around our area of towns that are up there, or you may not see anybody. And you can take advantage of how much ever you want. You can go all day long if you choose to, but nobody's keeping track. But it really does pump a lot of information out. And it's kind of neat to, the expo, there's a lot of vendors in the expo area that are, you know, salesmen. They're wanting to, hey, our lights are better than what you have now, or things like that. So it is, it's a real worthwhile. It's something where if you want to take, you know, your family or spouse or kids, and it's in, I believe this will be the last year that it's in the location of the Hilton Towers. I think they are going to switch the conference in the future to up the road and over to the west to the Hyatt, I believe. So this is down in the South Loop at the historic Hilton. You know, walking right on Michigan Avenue. So if you got any questions, just, you know, shoot me an email or call me, and I'll kind of walk you through. I was scared to death going up there when I first started, because I was like, I don't like driving in Chicago, but I know the route right now, and I go right into the parking garage, and I leave my car there, and I walk. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, or train. Yeah, trains. A lot of folks do that, huh? Yeah. They may have they're always looking for seminars, and since I've been on the board, I moderate some seminars, and it's really neat to, hear from the different, I did one a couple years ago about, you know, I don't know how it was worded, but it's so interesting how, you know, our community has something in the same, and it's going, the same stuff's going on in the next community, and it's kind of a round table of mayors or alderman round table of, it's just kind of a neat dynamic to get with, and you meet new people, and it's a good, it's worthwhile, so.
The mayor mentioned the expo, the vendors that are set up, but you also have Illinois EPA, you have the treasurer's office, you have the comptroller's office. They're all there to speak to, not the individual comptroller and secretary of state, but you get to talk to the employees and learn a little bit more about the IEPA and things like that. You can spend an awful lot of time down in the vendors, but you can also pass up an awful lot of them too, so.
Yeah, and there's a,
They're salesmen.
it's a reception at the opening night, to kind of get acquainted reception, and then Saturday, I believe, or Friday, is this keynote speaker. They bring someone in. Over the years, it's been anybody from celebrities like Mike Ditka, the old coach, to Bo Jackson, who was a Hall of Fame running back. He came and spoke one year, and a very good author, and I can't remember his name. I got his book downstairs. He was really good. So it's not just politicians getting up there and stumping. It's very a lot of variety. So okay, any other old or new business? I want to thank Reg and Jamie and Cameron for coming tonight and presenting, and Rick and Doug didn't say anything, and Chief Mefford didn't, but hopefully we stay away from some rain for a while. Yep. Is there a motion?
I will motion.
Well, Alderman Williams is motion, and is there a second? Alderman Speed. We are adjourned.